to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Have you ever felt like that communication that you have lands on deaf ears, or you're talking to a curtain, right? So what's really important is when we communicate in a way that actually gets us the results that we intend to get. And what we have found throughout our years of serving organizations and working with organizational leaders is that there is a very specific way to communicate effectively to actually drive those key results. So welcome to Talent Optimization. I'm Tracy Shirk, and today we're going to be digging into what that communication looks like. And here's something really interesting. So there was a report that was just run by the Predictive Index, which interviewed 500 companies, called the State of Talent Optimization Report. And we'll have that report in the show notes if you're interested in it. But what it specifically, some of the key things that came out of that is that only 23% of these executives said that they aligned their talent with their business strategy. Yet 93% of those individuals that did this had prevented financial loss in the past year. So that's really interesting, right? But the other side of that is that we found that less than 80% of CEOs believe that their employees' ability to communicate the business strategy to others, essentially, executing your organizational strategy can feel like a game of telephone. So, if middle managers are not clear on the direction up to the top, that confusion is going to amplify as you go down through the layers of the organization. So senior leaders need a very clear talent strategy that puts complex business needs into clearer people terms so that all staff understand what the strategy is. And that, my friends, is communicating with clarity in order to ensure that you're getting those key results, right? So how the heck do you do that inside of an organization? And we're going to go through a couple key ways to do that. But here's the thing with business strategy that I want to talk about for a second before we get into communicating it. And that's really understanding what is a business strategy, because what we find so often is that what a strategy is misunderstood to either be a mission, which is really what will be achieved. The values is a network of whom that value will be created and captured, but a strategy is how resources should be allocated to accomplish the mission in the context of the organization. So that's the key, right? So strategy is really all about how those resources are allocated in order to get those end results. Well, guess what? So much of that is being done through people inside of the organization. So when we can align our people directly to that strategy and ensure that we have the right people in place to execute that strategy with clear communication on what that is, guess what? This becomes easy. All of a sudden, the blurriness goes away and we start to see it in 3D right in front of us. So let's take a closer look specifically into what that is. And so much of it has to do with alignment. Have we aligned for ourselves the mission and the goals, which is the what, to how we're going to accomplish this, which is our strategy, to why we're going to do it, to who's going to do the work, right? So that's what our job is as, executives and HR professionals, is to clarify these things inside the organization for our staff and to ensure that they really know where they're going. So a couple of different things that we definitely want to focus on today is how we communicate that. So when we're communicating, and this is probably not going to be anything new to many of you, is using really SMART goals. And we like to call them SMARTY goals. So what specifically are we focusing on? And keeping that constrained focus to three things. Because guess what? Our brains are not storage containers, unfortunately. if we are spending all of our time going around thinking about what it is we have to do, we're not spending the time getting the things done that we need to get done. So when we can constrain our focus to very specifically those 3 things we have to do, we're going to get those 3 things done. And then we need to be able to measure it. So what is the measure of that? And here's a key distinction. And if you've listened to our podcast, you've heard me talk about this several times. It's the distinction between an output and an outcome. So an output might be that we are going to have a meeting with our committee about how we are going to allocate our resources and develop specific products, right? So we're going to have a meeting about how we're going to do this. That's an output, but there's no outcome. So what is the outcome of that meeting? If we don't define what those outcomes are and how we measure it, we're not going to get things done efficiently. And we're also not communicating effectively what the measure is. So instead of saying, hey, we're having a meeting with our development team, we can state, in our development team meeting, we will accomplish these 3 strategies, or we're going to make a decision on these 3 strategies that we will put into place in the next XYZ timeframe. So it's really different when we think about that. So that's the measure of what it is. And the action is, what are the specific actions that we are going to take to do that? And so are we going to make 5 phone calls? Are we going to enter the information into the system and create the email flows of what that communication will look like? Are we going to create the workflow process that makes that thing happen and, determine who our resourcing needs to be specifically for that? And then, is this realistic? And this is something that's so incredibly important for our leaders to take a look at. Is this a realistic goal? Meaning, can it be done in the timeline that we have with the resources that we have? Because if we're not clear on what it is we're trying to accomplish, and we're not really paying attention to how long something can take, we can put our whole team in flux and create so much stress for them that we end up with high turnover. And we may get the thing done in 6 months when actually it should take, a 1.5 years, but it came at a huge cost to the organization. So we want to make sure that those things are realistic and that they're time-based. So, hey, when does this thing need to be done by? The other thing to look at is, what is the why? Why is this important? So if we think back to that mission and the conversation that we were just having, why are we doing it? And does it align with who we are as an organization? So again, it's specific, it's measurable, it's actionable, it's realistic, it's time-based, and there's a specific why to it. And so let's talk a little bit about what this looks like from a manager perspective. And we use something in our organization that we call Easy Weeks. And really what Easy Weeks is it is how we're communicating out the tasks for individuals in our organization. And quite honestly, it's how we're communicating to ourselves and to each other about what specifically it is that we're doing. So for example, we are going to lay out everything that we need to do for the week ahead of time. And then we're going to go ahead and build that into our calendar. So if I know that, I have 3 specific goals that need to be accomplished on Monday, one of them may be to finish a report for a client. One of those goals for Monday may be to record a podcast. And one of those goals for Monday may be to lead a webinar inside of our Talent Optimization Foundation program. So those are my 3 tasks that I need to do. I'm going to block in my calendar the time that I believe it will take, because I'm going to tell myself how long it's going to take to do that thing. So instead of saying, research for report, I'm going to say complete report and send to XYZ client. I'm going to block those 2 hours off. And guess what? In my mind now, I can cross it off my list because it's already done. And it is written as a completion, very specific. I can measure it. Did I send the report? I have the actions there in the body of my calendar invite. It's realistic. And I have the 2 hours that I say I'm going to do it. And why am I doing it? Because our mission is that we believe every individual has a right and a choice to be fulfilled in the work that they do. So that report aligns specifically with that mission. So that's just an example of how we can really use our communication to drive very specific business results inside of our organization. And that's just through calendaring, right? So if we take it, a little bit into a bigger scenario, we can look at this for what are the 3 goals for the year. Now let's break it down into quarterly. Now let's break it down into monthly, and everything should align to match that. And of course, we're going to do that for our teams and specifically for the individuals. That's also how we can start to have really great performance conversations in the moment to support individuals in reaching and achieving their key goals. So with that, as we close all of our podcasts, what is one key takeaway for HR professionals? And that is, really know what are the business objectives of your executive leadership team. If you know what those business objectives of your executive leadership team are, you can communicate them effectively to the management team and to staff through whatever communication platform you use. We love partnering with Paylocity and using events in Paylocity to push out, key communication and actually doing it via video. So that's one thing that you can do. And what is a key takeaway for the executives? And that is know where you're going. Align your business strategy with your people strategy to get your business results. And have clarity about that, because what that's going to do is it's going to allow individuals inside your organization to get better results. So with that, please join us in our Talent Optimization Foundation program, which is every Monday at 1:00, where we specifically dig into these key strategies. We go into the step-by-step of how to do it. And then we have open office hours where you can ask us questions to brainstorm and really get those results you're looking for inside of your business. So thank you so much for joining us here at Talent Optimization with Tracy Shirk, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.